As a new board member, I'm really excited to be on the board and to start some programs that will help gain community spirit. I think this is really important for our community.
What? You sound like a cheerleader. You know, I've been on this board for 10 years now, and I'm not spending 1 penny on socials.
As a new homeowner, we have to build community spirit. I don't even know my neighbors.
Neighbors? Most of the people around here are renters. They don't give us anything. All they want is stuff from us. That's ridiculous.
We need to make a community magazine. It could come out monthly. We could get the members involved by showcasing all the activities in the community.
You know, when she talks about magazines, who reads? Nobody reads what's in those magazines. It's a total waste of money.
Donna, we can have a holiday block party. We can have a contest. We can have pumpkin carving.
I can't understand this anymore. What do you think we're going to do? We're going to do every holiday? They have their own families. They
I
don't
heard
need
this
to
about HOA.
Donna, listen to me.
Same
I'm
thing,
telling you,
over and
we're not
over.
going to spend that money.
Stop. I understand where you're coming from. You've been on the board for 10 years, but there are other people in the community that have different ideas. So let's present this to the membership and see what they want. And renters are residents also.
Thank you, Donna.
These are some scenarios that people have in board meetings. So welcome to our presentation. We'll start shortly.
Hello, I'm Mary Rendina, Executive Director of the Nevada chapter of the Community Associations Institute, and I'd like to welcome you to the CAI media presentation. CAI provides comprehensive education to board members, homeowners, and community managers. This presentation series, developed by CAI's Nevada chapter, brings educational information to board members all around our state, and it has been developed and presented by experienced board members, all of whom have completed CAI's award-winning Decal Education Series. We thank our generous sponsors who make these free presentations possible.
We at the Nevada Real Estate Division applaud you for volunteering to serve as a board member on your homeowners association.
Board members play a vital role in successful HOA management, which is why we believe that board member training and ongoing education is critical.
We're proud to support the effort of CAI's Nevada chapter to provide this innovative digital media training.
We'd also like to remind you that you can also contact the Real Estate Division or CAI for additional help.
Enjoy the presentation.
Hi, my name is Donna Toussaint. I'm going to introduce myself to you and my friend Frank. I've been involved in HOAs since 1997 when I first bought a property in an HOA, and I went, what in the heck is this? And I never realized it was going to monopolize as much of my life as it has. I served on a large board for 10 years as the president. I also served as the commissioner on the common interest communities and condo hotels here for the state of Nevada, which helps regulate HOAs, and I'm on the board of directors of CAI. I also have completed the Decal program, which is an extensive program of teaching homeowners and board members how to get educated. This is my friend Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank Fimiano, and I've been involved actually with 2 HOAs, 2 completely different ones, but most importantly, lately I've been a board president of a large HOA for 7 years. Has been a real challenge, and had a chance to learn a lot about HOAs and the laws and how people interact. And I'm going to try to share some of that today in a positive way. Don and I, by the way, are both members of CAI, our Community Association Institute, which is responsible for this presentation, and have been willing to sponsor us and let us share some information with board members. And Don and I both have taken the program, which we affectionately call DECAL, but it's called Dedicated Community Association Leader. And it requires us to take about 25 hours of classwork, which is really informative and helps educate board members into what their responsibilities and their roles are. And it has helped me a great deal, which is what I really enjoy about it and so forth. So we hope all this training will benefit in this presentation some of the ideas that we've come up with on how to build community spirit. So we think it's very important, and that's why we chose to talk about it today. Donna, we're going to do what, a 4-part presentation
We're a
today?
4-part presentation on how to build community spirit, because it's very important. It's one of the most important things you can do, because if you have a community that works well together, you're going to have a happy community.
That's true. That's true. It's hard to keep people together,
It is.
you know.
It really is.
So we're going to move on now with our presentation and give you some ideas of what's going on. And I guess you're going to start, Donna, with how do we build community spirit? Oh, by the way, Donna.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to tell you about our little skit.
Our little skit.
Yes, yes. And when I called you a cheerleader, you know, some people say that I'm the cheerleader in my HOA because I'm always a real positive person about HOA and activities and socials and so forth. But I want to let the people know that, you know, I really like Donna. And contrary to the skit, and we get along pretty well, really.
We do. We really do. And I have to tell you, the skit was just to emphasize how there can be conflicts, and board members can be conflicted as to know what to do in their communities. So with saying that, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, why don't you kick off?
Okay, why do we build communities? What's community spirit? What's the best thing you can do? It's bringing homeowners together, bringing neighbors together. I can tell you, if your neighbors don't know each other and the garage door goes up and the garage door goes down, you're not going to have a lot of community spirit. You're just not.
Yeah, you know, it's so common. You hear that a lot, where people are standing out in their driveway or putting their trash out, doing something, picking up their paper, and a car pulls out next to you, and they wave at them. They always are very friendly, and they keep right on going. But if you ask them, do you know their name of your neighbors? It's amazing how many people don't actually know their neighbor's name. And that is that garage door syndrome you talk about. You know, hello, goodbye, and that's it. And we're trying to build something that makes people feel more ownership for a community. And that's why it's important that you do get to know people.
Well, one of the problems we have, I believe, in Nevada is we're a lot of transplants. There aren't a lot of people that were born and raised here, especially in my age group. So you have people from all different parts of the country or maybe the world, and they might not have something in common. So it's important that you find something that will bring them all together.
Yeah, and I sense that people that are involved or people that know people other than maybe sitting at the pool or waving hello, goodbye, there's a sense then that they belong to something together, and they're willing to interact a little bit, and they're willing to maybe get more involved in doing some of the things and socials and so forth. So that's why this is so important about building community spirit. This is why we think there's so many positive things that can grow out of people knowing each other and working together.
Well, one of the things we did in our little skit was a community magazine or a community newsletter. We're going to get into that later in the presentation. But it is important to let the homeowners know, whether they're renters, they're owners, people who live in the community, what's going on, and it helps them be a better neighbor.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, when we do have things in our socials or some programs that bring people together, so often I find we get all concerned about numbers. Well, how many people showed up? You know, and, you know, well, this wasn't valuable enough because, you know, we have this many homes and only 10% of them showed up and so forth. And I think we have to stop that attitude because sometimes programs take a little while to catch on. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen necessarily the first time. And so we have to build on it. You know, start by doing some things and bringing people together, and then maybe it'll grow into something, you know, a little bit more special.
Well, you're right, and we do have some examples that we're going to give later on in the presentation. But the most important thing, never say who isn't there. That is really destructive because you want to point out who is there. Give them the pat on the back. Give them kudos. Don't ever say who isn't there. That doesn't help anything.
Yeah, and you know, whenever you use things, especially in writing, I get annoyed sometimes when you may put something in your newsletter or on your website which starts off as a negative. Well, not many people showed up, but those who did had a good time. And I think it sets a tone. I think we have to be, again, much more positive about what we write, what we send out to the community, so that it is that sense of, you know, we're working hard, we're doing things together, and we're hoping that this will grow into something special.
Well, I can tell you, if I read not many people showed up, I wouldn't go to the next event. I just wouldn't go. Why would I go? Not many people showed up. Obviously, it wasn't a good event.
Yeah.
But if you spin it around and say, we had several members at our community event, we did this, we did that, everybody had a good time. Never, if you can get around it, never start anything with a negative.
Yeah, especially like, don't do this. You know, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Even when sometimes we send out information. We try to say nice stuff, and then we say, you know, you can be fined if you do this, or don't do this, and your neighbor will be upset, and so forth. So we got to try to eliminate all that negativity that goes on.
Exactly.
So, well, let's talk about how we communicate. There are a lot of different ways that we do communicate, and how we're going to get across this positive idea. So what do you think some of the ideas might be?
Oh, have a website. A website is a great idea. People can log on, they can see when the meetings are, they might even have your minutes on there if you weren't able to attend the board meeting. Newsletters are a great way to get information out to homeowners. And one of the things that some people are doing now is social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or something like that. I'd be very careful how you do that.
Yes.
I wouldn't do it unless I checked with my legal professional before we do anything like that, because everybody can log on, and it's not a closed group.
Well, yeah.
Some things sometimes when you read something, or it's like when you get an email, someone's very happy, but you didn't read it the way they meant it.
Right.
So be very, very careful with stuff like that.
You know, it's funny to say this, but sometimes words get in the way.
They do.
It's the way we
Isn't that a song?
phrase things, you know? It's like you put something on the newsletter and you meant it to be positive, and people read it, and it's like they get a totally different interpretation of what you're trying to say. So you really do need to pay attention to what you say. You know, the other thing too is some people are very private.
Yes,
you
they
know,
are.
and they don't want information. You know, even though we want to give it to them, they just don't want it. So one of the practices that I think are really important, if you're going to send out emails, you really need to get the owner to give that permission. And one of the easiest ways, of course, is you announce, you know, you're going to have an email blast, or you're going to have an email system in your HOA. It's important that you ask them to sign up, because once they sign up and they give you their email address, that's giving you permission to send official information about your HOA, maybe your social activities and some of the things, board meetings, whatever it is, it's really important. So getting that contact information the way the homeowner wants it, who you send it to, you know, what email you use. I wouldn't make any, you know, like sometimes you have lists from clubs or something out, and just to use somebody's name or their email, I think that's really inappropriate. You've got to make a system where they have to sign up, and then they're giving you that permission to go ahead and send out this information. And again, be careful what you say.
Exactly.
You never make negative comments about other people. You never make negative comments about an organization within the HOA. You're there to give them positive information to help them.
You're there to be the cheerleader.
Yeah,
You're
well,
there
I'll
to
be
be
that
the
cheerleader
cheerleader.
again. What can I say?
I'll tell you, one of the other things that people really love is pictures of themselves. So if you can ask your homeowners, send a picture of the last event you had, or the community project that you were doing, put it on your website, and put it in your newsletter. People love to look at themselves. They really do. And they love looking at their neighbors.
Well, you know, I think you're right. I think pictures are, you know, they say what, 1,000 words?
Yeah.
Okay, or launch
Yeah.
those ships or whatever it does.
Exactly.
But what's important about pictures is I know that when somebody's in a magazine and you tell them, they immediately go and read it.
Exactly.
And that's the way you get. The more pictures you put of people in there and activities, having fun, it just kind of like generates more and more and more involvement. So I always say, you know, fill your magazines, your newsletters with lots of pictures.
Exactly. Make them look as professional as they can, and you might only get a few pictures the first time, but then the next time you'll get more and more pictures. Before you know it, you're going to have to add more and more pages because you're going to have lots of pictures, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. You know, the other thing I think might be helpful is sometimes there's information that's really important that homeowners know. Okay, it may be, quote, the official information's about a meeting, like a membership meeting or some other things that are going on, or a specific activity, to make sure that in these newsletters they have useful information. I've even seen newsletters where they talk about in the community, like some kind of special event going on at the recreation center or the senior centers, or something, the 5K in the community, any of these activities that are happening in your general area. It's really important. And once in a while, there are some issues, and I'll give you a good example. In my area, there was a big issue about the airport that was being put in. It was, you know, commercial, but yet it was also a private airport, and they were talking about expanding it. And what got people really upset, and it was again because of lack of information, is where the flight patterns were going to be, because they don't want planes going over their home all day long. And it took us a while to, talk to the people at the airport, get the accurate information. And that was one of the things we published. And it became very helpful because it diffused some of the anger that was in the community, not knowing, and just hearing things. And then people write letters to the editor in a newspaper, they read it, and they get all upset about things. So anything that can be helpful, that can be informative about events that are going on in the community, it's a good place to put it in
But
the
have
newsletter.
your facts correct.
Yeah, make sure the
Be
facts
sure.
are correct,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Check and double check, because
Yeah.
you don't want to put something in there that isn't correct.
No, I agree, totally agree. I guess we should talk a little bit about places where they can get community events and other types of things, like City Hall, utilities, all of these things are ideas where they could get places of content for the newsletter to make them more valuable as we go along. The other thing is, and I'll let you talk about CAI and all their important information that we can download, because I know you're a real fan.
I am, but getting back to other areas, water is a real issue in the state of Nevada, not just Nevada, the whole western part of the United States. Maybe you can get somebody from your local water district to write a letter on how you can conserve water, how you can conserve on power, whoever your power company is. I mean, these are things that people need to know, they might not be aware of, and it is very helpful. It really is helpful.
That's true. And again, there are many different sources. It's not like they have to create new things or new articles every time. There are plenty of material out there that they can share.
Well, I can tell you, we had a neighborhood watch in our community. We had the person that was in charge of the neighborhood watch through Metro, the PIO person, was writing articles for our newsletter for a while. It was very helpful. It was telling people simple things that they may not have been aware of.
One of the things that bothers me a little bit, sometimes there are HOAs who see renters as almost like second-class citizens. I think that's a big mistake. I think renters should be included in all newsletters. They're in your community, they're living there. They are tenants that have many, many rights and responsibilities as well. But they should all be informed. They should be included in any kind of mail out, whether it be newsletters or important information. They should know what's going on. Because I really believe that if you get some of the tenant and renters involved, they could end up being your future owners.
They could very well be.
If they like where they are and they want to stay there, because there's many times things change with owners, they want to sell that house or they want to change a tenant or something. And I find that a lot of them then become owners. And the more involved they are, the more they understand about our HOA, I think they become better homeowners.
Well, and people who are leasing a home from a homeowner, in a sense, they are paying assessments
Sure.
because they're paying the house payment.
Right.
So they should be included in your community. In my community, we send everybody everything, whether you're an owner or not.
Yeah, that's really important.
Because they need to know the rules too.
Yeah.
They're living in our community.
Absolutely. And there's one other group of people that I wanted to talk about. Do you remember what it was like being a new kid at a new school? Have you ever had that experience?
Oh, yes.
Where you walk in and you feel like you're a total stranger, okay? And it's that one kid that befriends you, that makes you feel like you can breathe and be a little more comfortable, that you might be accepted. That's the same way I feel about new people who move into our communities. We have to make an effort to reach out to them. And sometimes it's informal with neighbors. Maybe they bring something to their door, a cake or something that makes them feel welcome. And sometimes there's more formal programs where the HOA specifically designs programs to help welcome new homeowners. Now, one of them that I know about, which I thought was really good, is they had somebody, it was a very small HOA, and they had somebody there that loved to embroider. And what she did, is the HOA bought these nice towels. She actually embroidered their name and the address.
Oh, wow.
And they went and presented it. And, and they put other information in the packet, but they presented the towel and welcome that they could put in their, bathroom when guests came and so forth. It was really neat hand towel. And then they put in their, coupons if they had any. Now, there's another one I know about, and it's a larger HOA, and they do this every 6 months. Every 6 months, they have a new homeowner welcome party. And what they do is they send out letters, and when they don't respond, they phone them. They really make an effort to get them to come to this party, and it's designed for new owners. And they may have, like the community manager talks or the board president, and explain some of the things and the activities and the things that are going on. But then more importantly, now you know this one, they serve food. They have the cakes and
food is the
you know, the coffee. That's always makes people feel welcome.
Exactly.
But here's the part that I like best of all. They had representatives of various clubs and activities and socials sitting at tables with information. And the people walked around, kind of like at a conference where you go around and you collect goodies. And each group had something, like a craft had a little gift for them, the craft clubs, or the aqua club had them sign up and get 2 free classes, some little giveaway that not only said, here we are, but you're really welcome. We want you to be part of this. And to me, it was really special. I saw it one time. I went and observed it. And it was really special, the reaction of the new homeowners. They were so stunned by the fact that all these people were there for them.
I think it's a great idea.
Oh, I do too.
Just an awesome idea.
I really thought it was.
But anytime you can build community spirit, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, and I think the more we recognize how important people are and communications, the better we are to understand it. Now, I guess that brings us to segment 2, which will be coming up, where we're going to go on some other ideas and topics related to communications and building our community spirit so we feel like we all belong.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
See you in a few. Hi, welcome back to segment 2. We're going to talk a little bit about renters and how you register renters or tenants and why it's so important. These people are part of our community. They may not be owners and maybe they can't vote and maybe they don't come to our meetings, but they are part of our community.
An important part.
A very important part.
Absolutely.
And when you register someone who's leasing a home, what does that do? Well, they go to the office probably and they get to meet the community manager. And all of a sudden they can put a face to the community. So if there is a problem or they do have a question, they won't feel intimidated by calling that person and finding out what the answer is.
That's really true. I mean, all of the tenants are important. Making sure they're on the newsletter, make sure they have copies of all the forms, the CC&Rs. You know, they're supposed to get it from the real estate agent when they buy into your community. But it's always good to check. And if you have tenants who are allowed to come to like a common facility and they come in to register, to make them feel really special. You know, like, oh, we're so glad to see you, welcome here. You know, like we have cards that we actually take pictures and so forth to come in, and we always joke around with them and, you know, make them feel part of it. By just giving them the card, it makes them feel like they belong now to something, you know, in the community. Because sometimes they think they feel isolated. They really don't feel like, okay, I'm an equal when it comes to the community. So these things are important. You know, ultimately, though, the owner of the property is going to be responsible for the property.
Exactly.
You know, they can't shirk their responsibility. They are the owner. And sometimes that gets a little confusing, you know, because I'm a tenant, I live here, I'm here every day. I should be the one involved, I should be the one informed. But yet we have legal responsibilities to the owner. And the owner is really important to take on that responsibility and pass down to their tenants anything that's really important to know. Because remember, the owner's got the voting rights, and
That's right.
they're help the decision making, and they're part of the laws.
Well, you were talking about the little card. A lot of communities, when they have a community pool or
Right.
a recreation, you have to show identification maybe
Yeah.
when you go in there. And once you register your tenant, then they'll know that they're supposed to have this card. And like you say, they will have their picture taken and they'll know they have to have this card on them anytime they're using the facilities.
And it's so simple. I mean, you know, whenever you make up a list of owners or you're sending something out, you just consciously be aware of tenants. And I think that's part of communication.
And be friendly.
Yeah,
Be
it's that
friendly.
friendly, it's that reaching out, it's that welcoming nature. It's really important. And it's always good to keep the list up to date. You know, there's nothing like sending out information to people that no longer live there. So when they do leave, you got to deactivate,
Right.
you know, the tenant list, and then you have to change it and add it on. It's really important that someone be responsible for keeping that accurate. Because when you get something in the mail, you want it to be your name. not just your address.
Exactly,
So.
exactly. And you know, a lot of communities are gated and people have access to the gates if they're no longer living in the community or they decide to move someplace else. Like you say, you have to have those lists up to date because you want to deactivate
Sure.
those particular codes.
Yeah, and there are concerns, you know, if you have gates especially, you know, that people could get in that no longer live there. So that deactivation is just as important as I think the welcoming, to keep the list really fresh and accurate all the way through.
But how to have a good neighbor and a happy neighbor is make them feel welcome.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And when they go to register and they have to give you their license plate number, just let them know this isn't something that's a bad thing, it's a good thing. That way, if you have a community security problem, they know those cars belong there, they don't
Right.
think it's something else. You know, you just need to be proactive, be friendly, and make sure that you welcome everybody into your community.
I agree. One of the things, too, that I think are important is HOA should do some surveys or focus groups or something once in a while to ask people, what is it that we can do better, or what is it that you might want? Now, there's some risk here, because when you ask people for information, you're going to get answers. And sometimes the answers that you get can be more of the negative nature. You know, people who want to complain about something make more of an effort to write back than the people who want to be positive. Oh, I have nothing to say because everything is great and everything's going along pretty well. So it's really important. And when you involve people, you've got to respond back to them. If you ask for a survey and ask for opinions and you tally them, you should publish that in your newsletter. Or if you're able to act, as a board maybe would act on something, if they say, we would need a welcome event, we need this, we need that, or we'd like to see a library, whatever it is, to respond back to the people and say, in the survey, these were some of the really top information that came through, the most important to the homeowners, and this is the action we take. Or you have to be very clear that, well, there's sometimes we can't do things. It might be money.
Exactly,
that
exactly.
You can't, put in every person's idea. Believe it or not, people write down recommendations that are against the rules. You know, those CC&Rs are still our Bible.
Exactly.
You know, what goes on and what we're allowed to do and so forth. So these are some of the things that we have to really be careful. Now, when you can't do something, I think it's just as important that we publish that.
Exactly.
What's the good reason? Why is it that we can't do those things?
And we should do that, because when people respond, let's say you have a Survey Monkey where you're going to send out an email blast to the community. What would you like to see us do in this upcoming year? You might get some really good ideas. You might get some interesting ideas that you might not want to use.
You always get some of those.
But, like you say, respond. I'm in receipt of your email. Or, yes, we got your Survey Monkey back. Thank you very much for participating.
Survey Monkey. What's that?
Well,
I'm not used to that term. It sounds really interesting.
It's a way of sending out a survey through email.
Oh, email survey.
And a way for people to respond.
Okay.
To simplify it, but you're right. It's really important. If you want people to be involved in your community, you want community spirit. If you don't respond to them when they respond to you, they're going to get frustrated.
Yeah, I think once in a while too, it's nice to have an incentive. Like if somebody comes up with a great idea, to give them credit.
Oh,
Put their
always,
name,
always.
positive, even that picture again in the newsletter. Any way you can reinforce the positive nature of people being involved. And I've heard of a community where they go out and they get, little gift certificates or something from a local merchant or a casino or something that they can give back. Say, we want to really thank you for your idea. It's a great idea. Here's a little token of our appreciation. That goes a long way.
It does. We did a survey several years ago asking the people who live in our community what they'd like to see around holiday time, and they wanted a house decorating contest. And we had over 200 people in our newsletter who had decorated their homes and who got some sort of
Great
awards
turnout.
or certificates.
Yeah.
And guess what? The next year, we had more people.
That's great.
And the year
yeah,
after
that's
that,
that
even more
building
people.
concept.
It is.
It
It
may
really
not be
is.
the best the first time. Keep doing it. That's
Exactly.
one of the themes that we want to do. The last part that when we try to seek out information, did you ever do anything with a focus group? Like you find a group of people who might be interested, and I'll give you an idea. Like we have people who like to go places, travel, and believe it or not, we had a travel agent as a resident, and she took it upon herself to start in the newsletter putting in travel ideas. And it became like a focus group, and we had a night where everybody came together and they generated a list of places they wanted to go. And it helped the people, one, meet each other who like to travel, and secondly, they came up with, some of the trips were really easy, like Red Rock or the Neon Graveyard or something local. And they've built up to an overnight trip to LA where this person...
It sounds like fun.
Yeah, they led
And I
the
think
whole
we do
group
have
and it,
some examples later on in
Later
the,
on, we
our
will be
last
talking about
segment
some.
of some of these things that,
Yeah.
that other communities have done and been successful with.
Yeah. The only thing I would say to you, if you're going to do a group that is specialized, for example, you say a knitting club. Okay, I wouldn't have all the men in the community decide whether or not it's a good idea. So when you pick your focus group, make sure you pick the people that you're really targeting.
Exactly.
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 Because if you want something to fail, you ask the wrong people.
If you want a babysitting club or something, you don't go to people who don't have small children.
Exactly.
But communication is the key. Communication is so important, and I can't stress this enough. The more you communicate, the better results you're going to have.
Yeah, that's very true. One of the other things, it's not really a focus group, and sometimes you don't even want them, but they create a group, is when you do something new. Okay? I'll give you a good example. The city of Henderson put in a recycling program.
I remember that.
Do you remember that? Yeah,
I do.
and there was a whole lot of misunderstanding. Well, we didn't want the focus group, but we had quite a large number of angry homeowners because they believed that they were being forced to recycle. They also believed, now I know this is going to be hard for you to understand, they thought the board of directors were mandating it,
Right.
that everyone in the community had to do it. Of course, the board of directors had no choice. It was a citywide program that was started. And again, there's where the communication is so important. When you talk to your people and you communicate with the people and they know what things are happening, there's a lot better understanding. Sometimes things get away from you where it comes out in the newspaper first and it becomes really negative and some people take it up as a banner, we're going to fight this, and they don't have all the facts. And I think it's our job as community leaders to make sure that our homeowners have the facts.
Well, that's where communication is key.
Absolutely.
Communicate. One of the things that one community did, they were going to have a community garden. And they had this area that was not very attractive. And the lady that had started it moved away, and it just fell in disrepair. And what happened was they were going to get rid of it and just rock it. And some of the homeowners said, you know what, we don't want that. We want our
Yeah.
community garden back.
Yeah.
So what they did was they put something in the newsletter and the website, and they had a handful of people come the first time. And when the pictures of the community garden went into the newsletter, other people said, well,
Right.
I'd like to grow basil and spinach and
Sure.
Swiss chard. And before you know it, they had their community garden back. And you know why? Because it was a communication thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you have all kinds of things. You have holiday decorating contests, and
yeah.
we're going to talk specifically about what some specific HOAs did with that, because it's always hard getting it started and so forth. But you can do something really simple. There are people who love to walk.
Yes.
You could do a morning walk group, an evening walk group, and it's just natural for people to say, oh, well, I'd rather walk with people than alone.
Exactly.
Because instead of putting all those headphones on and acting like the world isn't there, it's so much better to interact. I find it so much easier when you're talking with somebody to walk.
Well,
I'm not an exercise nut, as you could probably tell. So it's important to me to have a little fun while I'm doing it.
But you have, young people who want to walk with their babies in strollers. You have people who want to walk with their dogs. You have people that want to walk with each other. It's a great way to meet and talk to people.
Sure. Again, letting people know what's available.
Exactly.
Communication. That's just so important.
Communication is key. I can't say it enough.
Yep. Well, I guess now we want to talk a little bit more about how we get certain events started and forming committees and so forth. So let's go on to some of those things that are important, different contests and so forth. You were going to talk about this, I think.
Well, I think contests are fun. They really are. Like I said, one community, my community, we had a house decorating contest at the holiday time, and people got their names in the newsletter. They got trophies, they got certificates, they got certificates for local restaurants. There's a whole lot of things you can do to have contests and have people get involved.
Yeah. You know what? But I found two things. When you want people to get together, there's two things that they need.
Besides food?
No, that was one. Come on now, we can't ever give up on the food. you got to serve some kind of little snack food, okay, to get people together, whether it's donuts and juice or whether it's just, crackers and cheese. People just love that. That's that automatic social interaction
Right.
Type thing, which is really important. The other thing is more gimmicky, I guess, and that is that sometimes people need to go away with something. They feel like, they have, and you can't always give, a gift to everyone who comes or something like that, but they love raffles.
They do.
They really do love raffles. We have a group of people in my HOA that love to make up those gift baskets. They do it, it's fun, they're learning. How to buy the material, how to match it and so forth, and wrap that foil around it. It looks good with the bow, and that's one of the things they like doing. So very often when we have one of these meetings where we're trying to form things or get people excited, we have a raffle for one of their baskets, which they donate.
And make
and
sure
it's,
their
again,
name
their name,
gets to the newsletter, the people that made the basket,
you
the
got
people who won the raffle.
the picture of them getting it
Exactly.
from the
It's
people
so
who made
important.
it.
It's so important.
It's an easy thing to do, inexpensive, but it always works.
It always works.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So we talked a lot about social media
Right.
already, but I don't know, was there anything else that you wanted to focus on in terms of making sure that you maximize social media? So many people are on it. I guess maybe I have to say it this way. This is a prejudice, Donna. It seems like the younger communities are more into social media. When you get to the senior community, some of them still say that thing, I don't use a computer. Don't tell me about computers. I don't even know what email is. But, so many of our homeowners are really into social media.
They are.
And how important that is.
They really are. They really are. And trying to encourage people to come to meetings. Meetings can be fun, and they are informative.
Yep, I agree. One of the other things I wanted to bring up is there's a concept that I think is really important, and it's called neighbors assisting neighbors or helping neighbors. In a community, one of the things where people like to get involved, there are people that are very service-oriented, and programs where you involve neighbors helping somebody. If you have elderly people, sometimes they can't maybe change the filter in the ceiling for the fans and the heating and air conditioning, and somebody comes in and does it for them. The simplest thing, changing the light on the outside of your house, or anything that's maybe more physical that people can't do. Programs that are designed to help people creates that interaction again. And I always find when somebody comes in and helps, how appreciative and how they feel they belong and so forth. It's really an important thing as we go through that. And again, the pictures, or we talked about the email blast to say, okay, this service is available. If there's anything we can do to help you, let us know, call this number. That's one of the things that are important, again, so that people know how to get involved helping other people.
Exactly.
So, well, I think we covered pretty much all of our segment 2.
So we're going to go to segment 3 now?
We're going to go to segment 3, and we got
Wonderful.
a few more ideas for them to
Terrific.
share. So we'll come back in just another minute.
Hi, welcome back to section 3. I hope you've enjoyed the first 2 sections. Now we're going to talk about how to handle violations.
Now that sounds like an exciting topic. How did that get into building community spirit? It's one of those things whenever you get to enforcement, but it is an important part of how people feel about their community.
It is, and if people feel like they've been abused or they've been received a violation and error, they're not going to have a lot of community spirit, are they?
No.
So there's a way to go about doing it. Always be positive and make sure that when people call you, if they call you, a board member, or they call the manager, that the manager is also responsive to these homeowners and people who receive violation letters. The worst thing in the world is you open up, I got a violation letter, I got to tell you the story.
Yeah.
I live on a lake, and the manager was inspecting our backyards because our backyards get inspected. And it was spring, and the manager sent us a violation letter because we had weeds growing in our back planter. They were ranunculus and bearded irises, which all of you could see was their little heads. Now, the manager was not an expert on horticulture. So when the irises, the bearded irises, the ranunculus were in bloom, we took a picture of them. We said, these are our beautiful weeds. Now, I wasn't angry. I understood what happened. But what did I do? I called the manager and said, look, these are our spring color, and they'll be up in a few weeks. And she said, oh, okay, I didn't know that. rather than getting angry and saying, I got this letter and this is terrible. There's homeowners, they have a responsibility too. They
Yeah,
really, if you always act angrily first, you're not going to get a good outcome.
Yeah.
And that doesn't build community spirit.
Now, I have a good one too, and again, I have a sense of humor, so I take it this way, but when you're president of an HOA, isn't it fun to write in that they have a violation on their property, see? And so when I got this letter, apparently one of the homeowners drove, I live in a corner, around the corner of the house, and I have a very large tree on the corner of my property, and one branch was kind of hanging down because of the weight, and you couldn't see the street sign. So he put me in for a violation until I cut my branch so that he could see the sign. But he had great joy in doing it, and I laughed
Right.
about it. I didn't know, of course, who it was until the person actually said, well, I was the one that did that. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I'm glad. I said, now I can say to all the other homeowners, you're not the only ones that get violations. The board president got one. And you know what? I complied.
Well, I can tell you, I have a story for you. And really and truly, when you're a board member, people look at you differently.
Yeah, they do.
They really do. We got a new puppy several years ago, a Springer Spaniel, who got car sick. So what I did was I put her in the car, and I was driving up and down the street. And one of my neighbors says, oh, you're inspecting my yard. I said, no, actually, I'm not. I'm trying to get the dog used to the car because we're going to go to California, and I don't want the dog to. And they go, yeah, right. Just then I opened the car, the dog got out of the car, and the dog went, bleh.
Ah?
Now,
Now, on their property, of course.
but really and truly, looking at it from their eyes, I understood what they thought I was doing. They thought I was driving up trying to find violations, which I was really trying to get the dog used to the car.
Yeah. And-
So there can be a lot of
And what makes
misperceptions.
you're making a point, and I think it's a really important point, and that is because we're looked at differently as board members, it's really good to have a sense of humor and to be, in compliance. And if somebody, writes a violation, it's not the end of the world. We know that. We know what's going to happen, and we know that we're going to comply. And all you do is you become a good example of what it is to handle appropriately a violation and go through the process. And I always find it fascinating in meetings where I can say, I know what to do. I know what the process is, you know? And remember the most important thing. Every HOA should always be focusing on compliance, not the fine.
Exactly.
Fines are negative. That gets out into the community. So what you want is whatever the violation is corrected. That's the most important. And that is a way of building our community spirit.
Exactly. We had two ladies that lived in our community. It's kind of a funny story, actually. And the one woman would get written up for her garbage can in front of her house on a non-collection day. She says, I don't even have a trash can. I have a little bag. I live by myself. So really, until we thought, well, this is just crazy.
Yeah,
We found out that the woman next door, for some reason, didn't like this lady. And when she knew the inspector was coming by, she'd take the
She'd
trash
take her can and put it
Now,
over
this is
there.
not building good community spirit. So what we did, we found out what happened. We invited both the ladies in, and we said, look, why don't you go to Starbucks and figure this out? And now they go play bingo together all
Isn't
the
that
time.
great?
So
Isn't
now
that
they're
great?
friends. They volunteer
That's
on communities, and a problem was alleviated.
I'm going to have to bring up a delicate problem that almost every HOA has to deal with, and it has to do with pets. You know how people are so locked into their pets. For some people, a pet is like a child, and it's really important to them. Well, there's two issues. One is you get the dog barking, and that issue. And the issue with the dog barking, and many times I find this is the case, the dog doesn't bark when the owner's home.
Never barks when the
Never
owner's
barks
home.
when the owner. So when you write them a letter of violation or a neighbor says something, it's always like, I don't know what you're talking about. My dog doesn't bark.
My dog never barks.
Never barks. Except when you're at work or you're out shopping or you're somewhere else, and then the dog gets lonely and starts the barking. But how you handle that is really important. Again, how do we get compliance? How do we get neighbor talking to neighbor? How do we get the owner of the dog to understand that maybe the dog is lonely? Maybe the dog has a problem when you leave the house, which is something that you don't see. And we work on that. Now, even a little more difficult, and I don't know if you have it, but we had a major problem, is no other delicate way to say this, but dog poop. You know, it's when they don't carry the bag.
Right.
They walk their dog in front of someone else's property, and the dog does their business, and they keep on walking. Well, who's responsible for cleaning up that dog poop? And the owner of the home comes out and sees it. It's very upsetting.
It is upsetting.
And what I guess we have to do is somehow, there are no bad dogs or cats or other pet. It's the owner that's not doing their responsibility.
Exactly.
And we had to have a whole campaign. We had T-shirts printed. We had everything else. I mean, it got so out of hand, okay, that actually now we do have good compliance. We did it with tongue-in-cheek. We didn't do it heavy-handed. But again, does that build community spirit? Absolutely.
Yes, we put doggy stations up with,
Oh,
with bags,
right.
and our gardeners, our landscapers fill it up all the time. And when we see people that are using the bags, we promote it. We put it in our newsletter. Thank you for using the bags. We know you're using them because they're disappearing. And you know, back to the dog barking thing, really and truly, like, most dogs don't bark when the owner's home. They'll bark when the owners are gone. And maybe what you do is you have somebody in the community that knows these people and listen to see if the dog is barking or not when they're
Right.
not home. And maybe it's something as simple as just leaving the radio on while you're not there.
Right. Yeah.
Or the television.
Well, that brings up the whole area of, you know, neighbors that have conflict with other neighbors. And I think one of the golden rules is we as leaders, board members, community managers, whoever is involved, you do not discuss a problem about a particular homeowner to any of the other neighbors.
That doesn't build community spirit.
Oh, it doesn't. It can tear it apart.
It
And
can.
it's like World War III when somebody's accusing a neighbor of doing
Get
something.
the
and-
Hatfields and the McCoys.
Absolutely. And it can become a really big problem. And again, it's the way you handle the conflict. Conflict's going to be there. You know, it happens. We're all people. We all have our own pet peeves and so forth. And it's not something that we can just deal with unless we do it in a very positive way. And you know, talking to neighbors and trying to get people involved. I liked your example, for example, where about the trash can and the two neighbors went out to
Yeah.
Starbucks. I think that was a great thing
Well,
to
we
get
had
them involved.
we had another situation where the two ladies, their houses were back to back,
Mm-hmm.
and the new owner just put in a new light and it was shining in the other homeowner's
Mm-hmm.
bedroom. Rather than knocking on the door and bringing some cookies that you got from Albertsons or someplace, she called the association and said, "I want you to do something about this."
Mm-hmm.
So what we suggested is, why don't you just go talk to your neighbor?
Mm-hmm.
And they became friends.
They became friends. Yeah. You know, one of the things, and I believe this is real, a real HOA did this, they actually posted on the homeowner's door the violation letter. Can you
think
believe that?
That's a big no-no.
I mean, it's like, okay, everybody publicly, they
No.
got to notice, you know, and say, you know, your dog is doing this, or, you know, your radio's too loud, you have a noise ordinance and so
No,
forth.
you never do that.
No.
If
We're
there's
not out here to embarrass
no.
people.
You want compliance.
Yeah, again.
And if you do have a problem, a neighbor to neighbor, you can go to the Neighborhood Justice Center
Mm-hmm.
and ask for an HOA specialist, and they will be able to assist you in resolving this problem, hopefully.
Yeah, a lot of communities also have animal enforcement officers.
Animal
or
control.
Control.
Yeah.
You know, you hope it doesn't get to that point, but it does take the HOA out of it. The HOA does not play the policeman.
We're not a policing
No,
organization.
we're not.
We never have
And-
been, we never will be.
And if you're going to build community spirit and a cooperation type of thing, sometimes situations can become so difficult, you got to pass them on. They've got to
Exactly.
go to other people that are in the job that can do something about it. We just don't have that authority.
We don't.
You know, we're not going into people's homes. We're not going to be involved in that. And we just have to recognize it and deal with it that way. And
Exactly.
I think that's really important. One of the other things now, let's get into a more positive nature here to end this thing. We talked a little bit about groups that have common interests and how we get, in a positive way, groups together that maybe aren't even as formal as some of them. And some of the ones that I thought about. Now let's go back. I know you're going to think I'm on a theme here, but eating, again.
It's
do you
that
know-
food thing.
Yeah, it's an eating thing. There are a lot of people who enjoy going to a restaurant. No cost to the HOA. Maybe what you do is you coordinate it by a sign-up sheet or whatever, and you put out in your newsletter that every Wednesday morning we're going out to breakfast at this particular place. We really would like you to join. Come meet some of your neighbors. and they all drive on their independently in their cars, a close restaurant, and do it. And I think that can be really positive.
And that's a great idea. There's also cooking clubs where people like to cook.
Exactly.
There's progressive dinners, which are really quite popular in a lot of neighborhoods, where you'll get a progressive dinner while each home will fix something else. Wine tasting is another thing that's fun.
I have another one.
What?
A local pizza restaurant did a pizza class where they actually made the dough.
Oh, no, that would be fun.
And they all got together. They could take 15 homeowners, and it was some small charge of like $10, and you got to eat your own pizza, you know. But they learned how to make it, and they had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs doing it, and it really created bonds. Again, that concept of building the community spirit, when you do things together, where you enjoy each other, I think then it makes it a much stronger community.
Oh yeah, bridge clubs, gin rummy clubs, walking, as we said before, maybe babysitting clubs. You know, there's a number of things you can do to build community spirit, and it makes better neighbors.
Yeah, I agree. So there are some things. How about some projects? You had some ideas on different projects people could do. I think it was disaster things and stuff.
Oh, a
you had
disaster
these,
plan.
Yeah, you had these ideas. They were and they're things I never heard of.
Well, having a disaster plan is a good thing. I mean, if you ever lived in Southern California or California, you know that there are earthquakes and you have to prepare for that. Nevada is seismically active. We're the third seismically active state in the union, so we probably should have some sort of disaster plan, especially if you're in a condo or a townhome, because single-family homes are a little different. They're single, but
Right.
If the townhome or a condo have an earthquake, that shakes. That could affect a lot of different people.
Right.
But really and truly, go around, make sure that your neighbors sign up for the disaster plan. If something happens, who contacts them,
Right.
who they contact. Make sure that my husband and I, we have our daughter's name who lives here in town in case something happens to us, so people will know how to find her and let her know that we had a problem. So I think these things are good. They help build community spirit.
Yep.
And
Some communities have neighborhood watch.
they do. We have a neighborhood watch.
Do you?
We
Yeah.
do. We do. We have a neighborhood watch, and it was quite effective. We like it. And our neighbors would get together
Sure.
probably once a quarter with the neighborhood watch to see what we've done and what we can do.
Sure. Potlucks. I hear that all the time.
Oh, potlucks.
All the time. Potlucks or progressive dinners.
Yeah,
Even if you just do it on your block.
exactly.
Again, it builds that concept community, block by block.
Block by block.
And then ends up being a whole community being together and feeling good and having fun.
Well,
so
that-
there are all kinds of ideas that we might want to have. The other thing that I wanted to stress is the bigger HOAs have clubhouses. They've got to make them accessible.
Yes.
They've got to be a reasonably low cost if they do any add-on charges and so forth. One of the things which I thought was a really good idea is sometimes during the holidays you have family members, and some clubs, HOAs, have restrictions about family members that they have to pay a fee, anybody that's a visitor type thing. This one HOA came up with a good idea. Every year they gave 4 free passes.
Oh, that's a great
What
idea.
a positive thing. The board voted to give every home 4 free passes that they could use, any type of visitor, friend, outside the community, family members, that they could go and there was no charge.
That's
again,
a great
what a
idea.
positive thing.
It
To
is.
say, here we are, we have all these facilities, we want you to use them. Here's an idea that, if you want to bring a friend or if you want to bring your family members at holiday times, here's a way to do it and it's no cost to you.
That's a great way to build community spirit.
Yeah, you make people feel important, make them feel good about it. Well, that brings us up to our final segment, which is my favorite, by the way.
We'll be back.
Yes, we'll be back with really good ideas from real HOAs of what they did to have fun together.
Exactly.
So we'll see you for segment 4.
Welcome back to section 4. Frank, why don't you give us some examples of community spirit and what other communities have done to help build spirit in their community?
Well, what I wanted to stress for this segment is that every idea that we got is from a real HOA that is actually doing it in the state of Nevada. So it's very appropriate for us, okay, who are here looking for ways to build community spirit. So I'm going to start off with one that's very simplistic. It was 171 single-family homes. And it's a traditional holiday concept of decorating and so forth. But this particular one had a board president, and it wasn't me, Donna, okay, because I'm fanatical about holidays. But he had a real thing for Halloween. And so he single-handedly developed a program where he was sending out a newsletter to all the homes and said, this Halloween, we want you to really decorate. And we're going to have a contest. And they got the Master Association to come in and judge all the different homes, whatever they wanted to do, decorations, and so forth. And they even allowed, okay, lights to be strung from one house to the other across the street in cul-de-sacs and so forth. So, I mean, it really became a total Halloween and,
How
environment.
fun.
Wasn't it fun?
Yeah.
And of course, they served their little snacks out on the street
Food,
for
food, and
everyone
food.
that come that wanted to walk and look at close up all the different houses and so forth. They did give prizes. They had gift certificates that they got from the local businesses and so forth, and made it an incredibly fun night where everybody was in the street. They closed off the street. There were no traffic involved. And really, it wasn't a lot of work to do it,
That sounds
because
like a
people
lot of
decorate.
fun.
It is. And they helped one another with decorations, and neighbors got together. So there's an idea. That's pretty simple. And you obviously can do that for any holiday. So, an idea from you.
Well, one of the things we talked about before, there's a community, it's about 36 single-family homes. So it's a small community, so obviously they only have 36 homes. So it's not like they have 10,000 homes. And they were
Right.
trying to think of what they could do. And there were a lot of different age groups involved. So what they did was they did a progressive dinner. And what they did was they would do a progressive dinner, then they'd wind up at somebody's house, and they would have all the children stay at one person's home, and the teenagers in the neighborhood would babysit so the parent could get together. And it was a lot of fun for them, it really was. They also started a book club because they like to read books. And so they had a book club, they had a walking club. It's a small community, and sometimes it's harder to get smaller communities involved because you have such a small group of people.
Right.
But it was really important for them to all know each other. They were all different age groups, and they even had an adopt-a-grandparent in the community.
Oh, neat.
Which was great because a lot of these people came from somewhere else, and where are the grandparents? Not here in Nevada. They're somewhere else. So they did adopt a grandparent, which was really nice. It helped the people who were of my age, who are grandparents, feel connected to younger people.
Right.
And it also allowed the younger people to associate with people their grandparents' age and get to know them.
Nice, very nice. I've got one that you hear about a lot, okay? We have no one willing to organize an event. Okay, now this one, in addition to that, is a condo unit. And they had about 312 homes or condos in this unit. And again, a really diverse population. People didn't know each other, and again, in some cases, they didn't want to know each other. But they tried to get together and say, well, let's do some things. Let's have some fun. Maybe we can create some, social environments. They could not get people willing to volunteer. One person stepped forward and said, I have an idea. I know of a program at UNLV that has an internship where people are in a recreation major thing where they need to do an internship. Mm-hmm. And they said, how about if we try to get an intern on a volunteer basis who has to do this as part of their education, develop some programs. And of course, all the people said, oh yeah, fine, as long as we don't have to do it, you can do it. Well, let me tell you how positive this turned out, okay? This young person got so enthusiastic that it was infectious. She did actually get homeowners or the condo owners to get involved to do things. Now, you're going to ask, what kinds of things did she do? Okay, how about a tango lesson? Does that sound like fun? Okay. She did field trips. Locally, they went out and they went to different places and so forth, making things together, whether it was food, decorations, for the holidays and so forth, going to one of the condos, and she organized it where somebody really knew it. Had the skill to do it and taught the other people. So it was like classes right there that you could take. Piano lessons. Mm-hmm. Any kind of social. They had even game night. where she organized it.
And sometimes it's just as simple as getting started. It really is.
It is, but they had some rules, and I like this. The rule was that every event had to have at least one board member present. Okay, why? Because it would die after the 600 hours if the board wasn't willing to continue the programs, to sponsor the program, so that they could see the enthusiasm. They could see how the tenants were really involved and really did enjoy the various activities they come up with. Now, it won't work for everybody, but it's an idea of a young person getting in there, getting involved, at least getting you started. But the key is, you gotta follow up after that person leaves.
Exactly.
You gotta keep doing it. And in this particular community, it worked. There were a number of people who were excited about the events and went ahead and continued the program.
Well, I always say never be critical, just learn stuff.
Right, right.
I always point at the positive. We have an interesting thing. We had a traffic circle in our community.
Okay.
And unless you're from back east, traffic circles can be a little interesting. And it really had seen better days. It really didn't look good. But the community itself didn't have a lot of money to refurbish the traffic circle. So we went to our local city to see if they had any grants and what we could do. And there was a $5,000 grant that we had applied for in our community.
Wow.
But we still couldn't afford to have someone design it.
Right.
So we went to, here down in Southern Nevada, went to UNLV, went to the architectural group, and we said, we want to have a contest. And we had 6 different architects that, kind of like your intern story, that developed and designed what this circle should look like. And then the community voted on it. And our landscapers did volunteered all their time.
Wow. Oh my
So the
gosh.
money that we got put in the plants and the irrigation and things like that, and it turned out great, and it was such a positive thing when people would drive by
Every
this.
day, people drive
Drive
by
by
it
that
and
circle.
say, we did that.
Exactly. And you know what it did? The next time we had a community event, we had more people show up.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to get involved.
Right.
They really did. We started having picnics in the park. People would show up. We live on a lake, so we had a boat parade.
Right, right.
And we would have, 50 boats in our parade around the holiday time. But really and truly, there are no bad ideas. There are just ideas. And once you vet them and you realize that people are going to get involved, and like I say, never criticize and never say who's not there. Always be positive and
Sure.
say who's there and what fun you had.
Yeah. There's some smaller ideas that can be a one-time thing or a program that's established. It can be any size HOA, because everybody talks about my HOA is too big, too small, too little, whatever. But things that can be done many times around the holidays. We already talked about decorating. That's kind of normal. I liked your grandparent thing. One that I heard was invite someone to dinner. Randomly invite someone in their block or in your community to dinner, someone you don't even know. And they had it on this one HOA as a formal program, like that, a specific day where people literally invited another couple or another family into their home and made a meal. What a way to build community.
Oh, that's awesome.
Not knowing each other and so forth. Ideas of New Year's Eve, for example. And this was in a family community where one home volunteered to babysit any kids that wanted to be there for New Year's Eve so that the parents could get together and have a progressive dinner or eat in other homes or going out to a special show or program, but gave them the night off. Now, that could be done anytime. That doesn't have to be New Year's Eve. You could have a program where there's a designated babysitting home. I think that was a great idea. I mean, just stop and think of all the things you could do for the community that would affect so many people. Helping decorate, 2 families getting together, all kinds of ideas I think would really be special.
Well, I know a community that I know of, they have a spring fling and they have a fall festival, I guess you would call it. And what they do is they contact their local government agencies and they'll bring in a shredding truck to shred papers.
Oh yeah, that's
and they'll bring in
important.
the recyclables, because a lot of times you've got a lot of paint that you've painted, especially if you've been in your house for a while, or a battery or something, you don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So what they'll do is they'll food again. They bring in food trucks.
Of course.
Food trucks, and if you live in the community, you get 2 tickets, and you can get 2 free meals. Anything other than that, you would probably have to purchase, because if you had a family of 6, that probably wouldn't work out too well.
Right.
And it brings the community together, and really and truly, you're being a good citizen. You're recycling, you're shredding, and it has a lot of positive aspects. You can even have a talent contest going on at the same time, or have some entertainment. You could have a car show if you have enough room to park cars. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do if you just think about it and put your mind at it.
Yeah, you mentioned a talent contest. I'm in a larger group of communities, must be 12, 15 HOAs. And the concept of a community variety show. Now I can go from one extreme to the other, okay? So let me talk first about a small HOA. What they did is they had a night where people spontaneously, and some of them trained and some of them practiced, of course, did different skits or singing or playing the piano, even had a group that danced a little thing. But it was simplistic. It was a dramatic reading. One of the cute things they did was a couple of skits they got off the old TV shows, like the Golden Girls.
Oh, how fun.
Which is a good one for a senior community. The Odd Couple. Sometimes I think the one they did was 2 women being the odd couple. It was really funny. And they did all kinds of things like this. And then the traditional, potluck dessert kind of thing. It doesn't take a lot. It's just a small space. Spontaneously doing things. Oh, one of the other things I thought was kind of funny, they had a group that sang a song that was a tune that everybody knew, but they changed the words about their own HOA.
Oh, no,
It was hysterical.
That's funny.
It was really quite funny. So again, simplistic ideas. Now the other extreme is a large HOA. They have a pretty big facility, and they have a stage and lighting and sound and all that. They did a full 2-hour variety show with nothing but homeowners involved. Now, all of them put together, when you put in technical and costumes and makeup and all the things, they invited everybody to do it. They had like 60 people involved from their community presenting the show.
That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? The show was actually 2 hours long. They charged $5, which they raised the money. Okay, guess what? They sold out. Capacity of their facility, because neighbors wanted to see neighbors perform. And it was so special the night. They ended a little more sophisticated with wine and cheese party.
Ah, okay.
Okay, which made everybody really happy, and you got a chance
There's your
to
food
meet
again.
the cast. Yeah, but you got a chance to meet the cast, and they were so supportive. Homeowners were so supportive of their fellow neighbors, entertaining them. I mean, that's a big scale one, but it is something that can be done.
Right, but these are examples of what communities can do to build community spirit.
Yeah.
And like you say, larger communities probably can do bigger, more extravagant things. But just because you are in a smaller community doesn't mean you can't have community spirit. You can always have community spirit.
Yeah. In all of our ideas that we came up here to build community spirit, what's the key? The key?
Communication.
Communication, and you need volunteers.
Volunteers.
That's the key. And now, everybody says, oh, how do you get volunteers? Well, you have to come up with things that are interesting. It doesn't hurt to send out the email. It doesn't hurt to send out surveys. What would you like to be part of? And list a number of things that they could check off in return. Don't get frustrated when people don't volunteer. But I find that one of the keys to getting volunteers is word of mouth. You have to get a friend to a friend. Come with me.
Exactly.
Come with me. I'm going to they're talking about starting a drama club, or they're talking about doing that variety show. Bringing a friend there, it just multiplies. And keeping good records of those who do volunteer and the contact, and most importantly, no matter what their skill is, use them in the activity. There's always something they could do, whether it's cutting the cake to serve the food, whether, any involvement, pouring the juice. But whatever you do, make sure if you get a volunteer that you use their services.
Exactly.
Now,
and let everybody know how great they are.
Yeah, and there's the key.
And take a picture of them.
Publicize, take a picture.
Take a picture of them.
Get it in the newsletter.
Here's Frank cutting the cake.
Yep.
Look what a great job Frank did cutting the cake.
Yeah, I'm great at that.
Are you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm better at eating it. But again, the key, make volunteers feel extremely important and valued.
Value
That is so
that's
key.
so important.
Because once you have them, they're going to repeat and they're going to be doing a lot more.
And they'll bring in a friend and so forth and so on. Before you know it, you're going to have a lot of volunteers.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of territory in these
We
4
have.
segments, and it was a pleasure working with you and
Thank
talking
you,
about
thank
that.
you, thank you.
And we hope that people will really take to heart ways that is perfect for their community, how to get the volunteers, how to come up with social events, and to build that community spirit. Because, again, homeowners that are happy are going to stay there and be
Exactly.
supportive, and they're going to be involved.
And what you said in the little vignette, yes, we are cheerleaders for our community.
We are cheerleaders, that we are.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for letting us present this to you.